Good morning, everybody. This is Jamalyn Williamson, and I am excited for one thing more today because I have my brother with me today. So, welcome, Josh Pay. How are
Hey, it's
you?
great to be with y'all. It's great. One thing more. I'm not sure I can keep it to one thing though. I'm not
I
sure
know.
I'll measure up to the brand promise here.
Yeah, no, we are Pays and we are kind of talkers, so that's exciting. So, Josh is here actually in Zionsville with us for a week. He came yesterday because the church is engaging in the Chosen, or yes, it's called Chosen. I'm going to let Josh tell you all about it in a second. But yesterday we had a chance to get family pictures, and people are deciding to make a commitment to this wonderful community in Guatemala and help children and create chances to have clean water and let kids go to school and all those things that I love. So I'm going to just get straight to it. And Josh, why don't you tell us about World Vision, who you work for? And um, at the end, we'll do a quick Q&A pepper session where I'll ask you some things that have nothing to do with your work.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
this will be good. Well, hey, thanks for welcoming me into the community this weekend. Obviously, I have the joy of partnering with lots of churches around the United States through what Jamalyn described as a pretty special initiative called Chosen that World Vision is deploying these days. But it's sort of a double joy for me, just because ZUMC is so special to my heart and to our family. Obviously, having grown up in the same family with Jamalyn and Dave being my brother-in-law, we're especially invested in what God's doing here in this community, and we're also benefiting from it. Little known fact: some of you who maybe watched online watched my daughter Abigail read the scripture this weekend before I taught. And truth is, especially through COVID, we were streaming live ZUMC services and still do every weekend into our living room. And so even though I call Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania home these days, ZUMC has been a lifeline, a faith lifeline for our families. So thanks for letting us join you, even from a distance. But specifically about World Vision's work. So yeah, I mean, it's my joy to be able to serve this really remarkable global humanitarian organization. I served in pastoral ministry, just like Jamalyn and Dave, for 18 years. Was a pastor in 3 different churches, twice an associate pastor, teaching pastor, and then most recently was a senior pastor for just short of 10 years in Rockford, Illinois, before jumping in to this ministry with World Vision. So, I kind of, for me personally, I share this passion, which I know that many of you do, for localized local ministry work in local churches right here in your own community, but then also reserve enough space in my heart for what kind of the global movement of Jesus is around the world and how we can be his hands and feet. And so it's fun at this phase in my life and career and calling to be able to have a foot in both of those worlds.
Yeah. Well, I told everybody last week I might be a little biased, but you're definitely one of my favorite preachers. And I thought you did an amazing job yesterday of sharing what it means to really look at the world as, that we're all connected. We just might be divided by territory. So, talk to us a little bit about the community that Zionsville is going to be serving.
Yeah, sure. Aguacatan, Guatemala is a really special community. And before I kind of jump into the community itself, it might be worth sharing. World Vision as an organization is partnering with communities in more than 100 different countries. And we're about a 70-year-old organization. Have our roots way back in kind of the contemporary. Bob Pierce, who was our original founder, was a contemporary of Billy Graham and was an evangelistic crusader, and found himself one particular evangelistic crusade in Korea after the Korean War. And thousands of people came to Christ in that particular crusade, as well as a lot of small kids, like teenagers, young kids. The problem was, as soon as they came to Christ, they were culturally, kicked out of their families and ended up in orphanages. And there was an orphanage director who came to Bob Pierce, our director, and said, "Hey, what are you going to do about all these kids? Thanks for coming and preaching Jesus, but what are you going to do about all these kids that these mouths that I have to feed now?" And he said, "I'm going to go home." The story goes that he reached into his pocket and gave her all the money that he had, and said, I'm going to go home and ask my friends to send more. And that became sort of the modern birth of what's now the modern child sponsorship movement.
Yeah.
And World Vision has sort of been, kind of pursuing that over the last 70 years. And as a result of that, have become engaged in lots of communities around the world. In particular, so our model is to address, kind of the root causes of poverty. So I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, but we're more of a community development organization that certainly has Christian discipleship as one of our key, like, leading development areas, sectors that we want to work in. But we recognize that, in order to have a long-term conversation and development of someone's spiritual growth, we have to first address a lot of their physical needs, and clean water, healthcare, education. These all become sort of key things that we need to address while we're leading them into the fullness of life that Jesus promises in John 10:10.
Yeah.
And so Aguacatan, Guatemala is one of those communities. And it's a beautiful community, I think about 5 hours north of Guatemala City, which is the capital of Guatemala. If you have ever been to Guatemala, you will know that it is very pleasing to the eyes. It is a incredible landscape and beauty everywhere that you look. But reality is, extreme poverty is rampant around the entire country, especially in those LACRO nations. You think about Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. These are places that are constantly battling extreme poverty. We see it with, in our news feeds, we see the result of that in caravans and migration north to the United States. But when you're down in those countries, what's clear is, these are families that love their country and they want to stay home.
Yeah.
They're very proud of where they live. The reality is the conditions have become so extreme, especially for young children, that they feel there's no choice but to try to migrate into a different kind of life, not even knowing what that life is going to be. And so
I think that's important too for people to realize, is they want to stay home, they want to feed their kids, and everybody wants to stay where they're from. So that's why I love this program so much that you guys are doing. It gives them an opportunity.
Want to stay home.
Right.
One of the things, and about Aguacatan specific, I shared on the weekend, it's a special place to me because it's the last place that I traveled internationally before COVID sort of locked all international travel down. I'd led a team actually into this specific community. So if you think about it, we're serving in more than 100 different countries around the world. But this is one that I put my 2 feet in. And it's a beautiful people who really are committed to seeing their community thrive over the next 15 to 20 years. And it was on that trip, in fact, that my perspective, and I know we're not jumping into a big conversation about kind of the migration and immigration here, but my perspective was significantly shifted on that trip because I was with my Guatemalan counterparts. And I asked one of them, I said, listen, tell me about this, about people sending their kids into these caravans. And she said, we don't want to come to America.
Right.
She said, we want to stay here. We want a better life for our own people in our own country, which is interesting because, you read kind of our news feeds and kind of assume, again, from this sort of, Western United States sort of paternalistic paradigm that says, oh, everybody's life will be better if they're here. Everybody wants to come to New York City or something. And in reality is that's not the prevailing thought.
Yeah.
The prevailing thought is we love our country. We want to see our country flourish. We just don't know that we have the resource to be able to do it. And so what we're doing, the development model that we've deployed and kind of what Chosen helps to make happen is to put the resource back into the community so that these communities can flourish and thrive and people can have a better life right where they call home.
Yeah. So have you seen different countries in their different stages of development?
Yeah, not even in different countries, but there are different phases of development within what we would call one specific AP. So for us, the word AP means area project. Sometimes we call them ADPs, area development project. And so Aguacatan is, for example, is an AP inside of Guatemala. Guatemala might have, I don't have the number in front of me, but they might have 25 or 30 APs that we are investing in within that specific country. Now take that, multiply it times 100 countries,
Oh my
you get a
gosh.
lot of APs pretty quick. But an AP represents anywhere between about 10,000 and 50,000 people population base. So you can think of it as maybe a county. And, our desire is to help influence all of the development that needs to happen inside of that county for fullness of life. So 10,000 to 50,000 people. And we make about a 15, it's usually around a 17 to 20 year commitment to that AP. And we do it in 4 phases. And so there's, obviously, without getting into details, phase 1 through phase 4 has different components to it. But phase 1, as an example, is mostly a convening phase, right? So we are not an organization that is a sending organization. We don't take missions trips. We don't rally. And there's, we're pro all of that. It's just not what our particular model calls for. We don't gather 15, 20 people up and take them down to solve the problems in that community. We convene local leaders in that community, not unlike what you've invested with in Zami Fanwa down in Fanwa, right? You're convening the leaders in that community to identify what the root causes of poverty are. And then we create about a 15 to 20 year, what we call community vision map that is, completely influenced by those local community leaders. And then we get busy empowering with resource and partnership and expertise. We get busy empowering that community vision plan. And so then by phase 2, you're starting to implement inside of what is typically 5 or 6 different sectors of work. That may be clean water, sanitation, and hygiene. That may be education. That may be child protection. That may be microfinance. All these different sectors then get addressed in phase 2 and phase 3. But we're there for the long haul. So we want to see this thing thrive and see the local leaders adopt it and have the opportunity to make it thrive. We're empowering that, but we also want to be done, right? Which is unique to our model too. So it's like, we're not committing forever to this community. We have a desire to actually graduate the community. We hope that there will be a day between 17 and 20 years down the road where Aguacatan now has all of the tools that they need to address poverty in their own community. Hopefully they've eradicated a lot of those root causes of poverty. And then we pull out and we move on to another community. And to answer your question more specific, you can see, you go to Aguacatan, and Aguacatan is a relatively new community that we're investing in. Well, it's not entirely true. I want to think maybe 8 or 9 years. So we're probably in phase 2 with Aguacatan. You drive about 30 minutes one direction, and you will be in another area of that same community that is in phase 1, and it is striking the difference. You drive about 30 minutes in a different direction, and you'll be in a community that has graduated, and that's in year 25 or so now, and it is a striking difference. I mean, you can see clearly how the development model is actually accomplishing significant
infrastructure in place and that
in
kind
that
of thing.
community.
Yeah. So I'm interested about the graduation because I'm in year 3 of probably a 20-year commitment. For Zami Fandwa, we just had our leaders do a survey, and we know there are possibly 177 houses that need to be built. So I envision having this huge celebration at the end of that. So tell me, what that graduation party, is it a little slice of heaven?
I assume so. I'm new enough to all this in the organization that I've not had the joy of being at a graduation, but yes, it is a community celebration. Obviously celebrating the development that has been done, but more than anything, celebrating the leaders that have made it happen.
Yeah.
Again, our model is, we don't want to be the hero. World Vision's not the hero. The local leaders in the community are the heroes. The faith leaders and such are the heroes. And so we're empowering them, and we're celebrating their great efforts over the long haul to make this happen.
So you talked a little bit about you guys don't do mission trips. That kind of helped me sit up a little, because we struggle with that a lot too. I always tell people, you're welcome to come down and see what we're doing, but our philosophy is that Americans don't do what a Haitian could do. So it sounds like World Vision's very similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, we recognize that there is, the body of Christ is a global body, and so there are good-hearted, full-hearted, fully committed Jesus followers who are indigenous to that community that we want to empower to do the work in their own community. Similar to
Yeah.
how, Dave's mission is to empower people right here in Zionsville to love and care for Zionsville. To
Yeah.
sort of one of the phrases I've always loved is bloom where you're planted.
Right.
We want to
Yeah.
help people bloom where they're planted. So now that's not to say that there's not value to that sort of thing. Like there's great value to
Sure.
getting on a trip and going and immersing yourself. And sometimes the only way your heart can really break for the things that break the heart of God is to fully immerse yourself into
Yeah.
it. And so we're very supportive of other organizations who would want to deploy a model that takes people to the field and immerses them in that.
Yeah.
We would just say, don't do it to the expense of those in that community
Yeah.
who need to be empowered, right? And so I shared a story with Dave. The last sort of traditional mission trip, quote unquote, that I went on personally or led was in 2003. My wife Pilar and I had led trips to San Juan de la Maguana for years, and had
Where?
taken San Juan de la Maguana in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, okay.
And we would kind of rally folks up and go down and do service projects and build something, or whatever.
Wait a minute.
Whatever
That's
needs
where
to
we
happen.
got our bridesmaid dresses.
It is. That's exactly
Yes,
right.
I
Yeah,
remember that. She had a woman make them for us.
she did in the Dominican. She did, and brought them home. So there was that. I guess there was that came out of it. But I had
Supporting the local economy.
one particular situation though on our last trip down there where I was on a crew. Here I am, a pastor. I have a theology degree, right? I'm not terrible with a hammer, but I wasn't built to do that. And so here I go down for a week to San Juan, and the project for that particular organization was to build a security wall around the school. And I spent the week, up on a ledge with a trowel and mud and land block. And I looked out. We had a crew of about 4 with 2 Dominican young men that were on our crew. And I looked out over the wall as we were working that week, and there were probably 3 or 4 like youngish, teenage Dominican young men sitting on what was literally a dirt heap. And I turned to one of the Dominican guys on our crew, and I said, "Hey, who are those guys?" And he said, "Oh, those are the guys that are going to do what you're doing when you're gone."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean when I'm gone?" And they said, "Well, yeah, you're doing their job." I said, "Well, when I'm gone, will they get paid?" And he said, "Yeah, they'll get paid." And I said, "Are they getting paid while I'm here?" And he said, "No, they're not getting paid while you're here."
Know.
And that was the moment that I just thought, man, what actually am I doing here? I mean, am I the guy that's supposed to come down and have this great experience that fills me up and makes me feel very altruistic about myself? It's sort of, and I call it, this is a little bit sarcastic, but I sort of call it, missional tourism, right? Am I down here to have a great trip and feel good about myself at the expense of somebody who could actually take the resource and benefit from it? And so that was the last time that I decided I would do that sort of trip. Now, I go on missions trips all the time, but they are what I would call vision trips, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm in that community to immerse myself in the community, to understand the root causes of poverty in that community, so that I can come home and figure out ways to empower a resource to go into that community. And so I would invite anybody who wants to do that kind of work, by all means, get on a plane and get to the field for that purpose.
I love that vision trip. I'm going to change that today on our website. I've been trying to figure out a different word than mission. Okay, that's exciting. Thank you for that. I will be taking all the credit for making that change.
Well, that would be true of, I don't know, say the last 45 years or so of our relationship.
I am 30 years old, so I'd like for you to watch it. So, okay, well, I have a question. We did all these pictures yesterday. It was super fun. But also I know it's summer and people are traveling for baseball and softball and basketball and going to the lake. And so what if someone listens to this and says, "Man, I missed it, but I really want to be a part of it." Can they do that, or how's that work?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the powerful things, they absolutely can. And I would invite you to come do this, to say yes to being chosen. Let me describe what it is in case you were gone, or maybe you're picking up this after ever having listened to maybe the message through one ear. That's fine. I do that all the time too. is, when you say yes to being chosen, you're saying yes to empowering a child in a guacathon with the ability to choose you, right? So rather than typical child sponsorship model was you look at a sea of pictures of children and you choose which child you want to be in relationship with. And one of the big things that happened a couple of years ago when we launched this new model for child sponsorship was we started asking the question, well, how do we affirm the inherent dignity of every child that we serve by giving them the ability to choose, right? So typically child sponsorship on the receiving end was very passive, right? A child has no idea who you are. Suddenly, one of our staff just shows up one day and says, hey, welcome to the program. You're now sponsored. It's like, oh, great. There's some person back in the United States that cares about me. But that was they never got to participate in being a part of the catalyst to their own transformation. Well, now we're letting them be the catalyst, right? They get to take responsibility and be the ones who generate this relationship. And that is having significant impact in the field. Children are now coming into the program with a different level of engagement and sense of responsibility, which is amazing. So when you say yes to being chosen, you take your photo. We're going to send it down to a guacathon where a child is going to walk into a room and they're going to have the ability to choose you and say yes to be in a relationship with you. And then we're going to take their photo of them holding your photo, and they're going to write their first letter home to you in that moment. So actually write at the top of the page, I chose you because, and then they'll fill in the blank there. And that's a pretty special moment when you get to see what it was that was going through their mind and their heart.
Oh, I
when they
love
looked
that.
into your eyes. Yeah. And then that'll come back. So this weekend, if you weren't here this Sunday, all that's happening tomorrow in a guacathon. And then next weekend is a big reveal weekend where there will be a bunch of envelopes hanging, and you'll be able to find the envelope and meet that child because we're turning it around that quickly. Obviously, if you're jumping in right now, that window has passed, but it's not too late to say yes to this and still be a part of the fun that's going to happen in a guacathon, because next week there will be a second choosing party. And anybody who missed the deadline this time will actually have a second smaller party for anybody who wants to say yes now. And then it just takes a couple of weeks. So you'll get your reveal. It won't come in a physical envelope. It will come by email. You'll get to meet the child that chose you. And then we'll send you a packet a couple of weeks later with that first letter home and all those kinds of things. So if you want to do that, if you want to jump in and still say yes to being chosen and join the many ZUMC faces that are going to be there in the guacathon community, all you have to do is this. Grab your cell phone real quick. All right, you got it. Pull that puppy out and pull out the text messaging and just simply text this keyword ZUMC to the number 56170. So type ZUMC to 56170. You're going to get a quick bounce back link. You're going to click on that link. You'll have the ability to decide how many children you want to give the empowering choice to. And you just fill that information out. And then it's going to ask you to upload a selfie. That's the best part. So you can do that individually or with your family. Take a picture, upload that selfie, and then our team's going to get that down to a guacathon this week so that you can be a part of Wave 2 choosing party and then meet the child that chose you.
Yeah, and John will put that in our notes. If you're driving, don't do that while you're driving, please. John will put it in the notes below so you can have a chance to do that just as soon as possible. Josh, we're out of time.
Oh, that's a bummer.
This is all. Too much. No, it's fine. We may do a bonus where I just get to ask you uncomfortable questions and have you talk about your feelings with me. So it would be like a normal Thursday night while we were growing up.
I'm not even going to go there.
Okay. Well, love what you're doing. I love it. I love that now I've caught a nugget and I'm going to go in and make a change to my organization. So that's exciting. Too. So please, if you are not sure, and it's $39 a month. If you think about that, it's like 7 coffees. So like make a pot of coffee one day and give all that extra Starbucks money to this child. You can literally change a life. So go look at the notes. It'll give you all the information on how to text and how to get signed up, and you'll get to be a part of it. And, maybe we might even be able sometime, because we work as a church in Guatemala. It would be so fun to like make a pit stop and see this community at some point too. So, okay. Well, thank you for your time. Thanks everybody for listening. As we close, Josh and I have another brother, but Josh, one of the questions I had was, who do you think your favorite sibling is?
I can tell you my favorite sister.
That's me. That's nice. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks for joining. Bye, everybody.
See y'all.
We will talk to you soon.